Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are back, and while we are back, I am still not gonna soil it. We already have tough news before we start. R.I.P. to Shad Gaspard after getting found washed up in the middle of the Venice Beach after saving his son in a brave effort while still getting washed up over the day. They quit the search later in the afternoon. Later in the day, and sadly, he has passed. And for all the great memories we have had of him as a pro wrestler, to the people in his life that known him for other reasons, hopefully the good ones. Uh, I just want to give a money, yeah, yeah, and a drop of Henny. uh, just an R.I.P. to Shaq Gaspard. Just a bit of a silent note, just a quick note on Shaq Gaspard. I think he was one of the people that questioned the part of a black WWE champion, or I think that was JTG. Otherwise, I think it was one of the Crime Time members. Earlier in the night, we of course had 10 face-off against Jon Moxley. Had a lot of high-valued matches. We of course had the earlier in the show, while in the middle of Jon Moxley and 10 match, they did a reference and update the findings of Shaq Gaspard dead. So yeah, really, they might do a tribute video on the SmackDown episode of WWE, of course, with good memories of a racist but over gimmick that was Crime Time. And then the weird heel turn of Shaq Gaspard. But that's besides the point. We have to remember him fondly. Moxley versus 10. This is, of course, over the valiant part of a heel that's, not that much of a pussy heel. This is more on the corporate side of the ladder. I still don't know where Evil Uno and Stu Grayson were hyping up, trying to get more people to join the Dark Order. And since then, they just gave it up to Luke Harper. Felt like nobody else is a major mouthpiece. Like nobody else is supposed to validate the Dark Order. We don't even see much. All we see more of John Silver and Alex Reynolds than the last, I think, 5 weeks. Like 5 or 7 weeks of Dark Order, the Dark Order startups out of Evil Uno and Stu Grayson that kind of had a good rep in the tag division since until SCU kind of shot him down in a tag team match on the earlier episodes of Dynamite, and then he comes bringing up trying to get absolute control of most of the Dark Order, always trying to bring a more controlled a bit. I don't mind it. It feels a bit forced to try to feel like Brody Lee is more authoritative than he is until major conflict comes. That he's not going to be intimidated. That he has absolute control, and he still holds on to the WWE, the AEW. Gotta get used to that AEW World Title until Moxley comes one-on-one with 10. Now this guy came as an intro powerhouse to the group. I guess a game changer other than regular just multi-man beat-ups by the Dark Order. So I guess 10. I think most people would be asking what's besides that. What's behind the mask? The guy is completely different. Comes around looking super buff. The only dude shirtless in the group, wearing 10, so he's probably more important. So and he was put up to this much of a high regard. Moxley comes beating his ass for a majority of the show until like a distraction comes off the ref and he comes lariating him off. I understand they're supposed to build up for the pay-per-view. We're a week off. If this was 2 weeks before, probably they would do something different with 10. This just came to a major job for us to at least hype up that Moxley's going to be more dangerous than saying that he's a geek and he's not going to come around chasing him for his belt. So he's probably just going to wait until Saturday. So I guess there's not much going into the match. There's two paradigm shifts, a pile driver later in the match. Then I just knew, okay, the match is done. Just one more paradigm shift and he's done. Yeah, and he was done. 10 would lose his first one-on-one contest match against the world champion. Not the best way to start off your borderline muscle of the group. I would at least have Evil Uno and at least Grayson or at least Silver or Reynolds taking over the jobs so Moxley can at least show how dangerous they are and they can sell better. You have this new guy coming up, all this hype, and all this muscle, and he comes getting his ass beat. Great. Next up, we of course had Marco Stunt versus MJF, a return match after he came beating Lee Johnson from the previous Dynamite. And now here he is, obviously to hype up his match with Jungle Boy. After his surprise return, he had two great promos in the price of 2 squash matches. Yes, of course, Marco Stunt would come back and have a running bulldog, a few punches that were obviously no sold by MJF because, haha, he's short. Counters into Hurricane Aranas. It would end off his, I think, Junoshu breaker or something, some kind of submission hold. It's some kind of abdominal stretch while he's on the ground. It's not that much of an impressive feat. You're beating up on a midget. That's literally his thing, is that he tries too hard and he's short. I see no reason other than he's just a more likable Hornswoggle. I like Marco Stunt. I don't mind him in the AEW. But stop making him jog, bro. I know they might have something bigger for him later on the line. AEW, their best quality on AEW, they treat everybody like they're important and not like they're just a developmental talent trying to get the other guy over. They're actually trying to get something set up for the next thing. Like Shawn Spears being the more undervalued Randy Orton. He even ripped off Shawn Spears news. The same thing with Randy Orton, like Randy Report or something. Whatever. It was a clever pun into his name when he was suffering an arm injury. When he was on SmackDown, he got to Raw. And Shawn Spears is doing this. This time he's challenging Dustin Rhodes because he kept shooting personal shots to the Rhodes family, even though he continues losing to Cody. And he even lost to him in the first round of the tournament for the TNT title. So, yeah, I don't know what they're undervaluing there, other than to at least make some continuity in the Shawn Spears still being technically relevant in the upper mid card scene. Because obviously Cody can't contend for the world title, and Spears is completely not that big on the world title scene. But I guess they can give him one TNT title reign. But on the standards of Shawn Spears, he's a good wrestler. Just know that he doesn't fit it for a long title reign unless he completely changes. And where the hell is Tully Blanchard, the guy that's been managing him for the last several months? And since then, he's just jobber after jobber after jobber, and he's still losing until he gets in the tag scene. The best thing that sells him off is his begging to have a tag team partner and just hang around with MJF. That's not selling much of a singles act, especially if you're managed by a 4 horsemen. That's really off on AEW's part. And Shawn Spears' part not taking that seriously. We, of course, had Jake the Snake Roberts have his one-on-one interview with Arn Anderson, the head coach of Cody Rhodes, or the Rhodes family entirely. Also, yeah, I don't know why the other guy is in the Nightmare family, other than I think he's just a close friend. That I guess, Brian Pillman was part of the Hart Foundation, just because he has a close relationship with most of the Hart Foundation. So, whatever. Yeah, come around hyping up what Mike Tyson going to be there for. That are they intimidated by Mike Tyson. That of course Cody. Pretty good promo for Arn Anderson's part. Weird cutoffs, and then it's like, oh wow, we are so hyped for 2 old people fighting. I think I saw a tiny little small crowd. I think backed up to the T, and it's like, oh Jesus Christ, I really want to watch 2 guys with beer bellies fight. I mean, it's sad when I watch current Ken Anderson face off against a retired WWE wrestler in that situation, because Ken Anderson now has a beer belly, and he's like on NWA now, so no one's gonna watch him unless you're a big fan of Power. And yeah, pretty decent promo hyping the factor. I think Arn Anderson did a way bigger job than, of course, we see Jake the Snake bringing up some unsubtle references over to what happened to Brandy Rose and even calling her a bimbo of some sorts. Cody didn't even come out. They didn't even do a backstage segment, even though he came around beating the shit out of him. And by the way, the Snake was laid by Jake the Snake Roberts. The maturity of me is never going to die. I mean, it already died as soon as I laughed on that side. But that was literally the segment. It ended up with Anderson and Jake the Snake following it off with just a simple little fight. I mean, a simple little scuffle. Like, I'm obviously caring about two men like pushing near 60s, trying to at least blow off. Like, I don't mind them having a. They could have done this backstage, and it could have had a bigger impact than just doing this while the table cover was just flowing in the distance because they're doing this in a wide open setting outside other than their little compound wherever the hell they were for the last 5 weeks of pre-tape. Next up, we had Ray Phoenix, Orange Cassidy after the Best Friends beat. I think Jurassic Express the last week. Ray Phoenix came out of nowhere and super kicked the back of Orange Cassidy's face and now the back of his head, and now we got this match. Pretty cool. Ray Phoenix got hilariously trying to ambush him, and he completely missed. Came tossing out everything, even putting on his elbow thing. I don't know why they're feuding with Orange Cassidy. He doesn't even get involved that much, and he does, of course, that. And the match was fine. Funnable in some aspects that he's being nonchalant. That obvious tope suicida from running. Tope suicida with the hands in his pocket, dropkick, hurricane and rana, and with the kip up. He's great in that aspect. Ray Phoenix did come with a double stomp to the back of the head while stuck in the corner of the match. Literally, I feel like this was the same match that they had at Revolution when Orange Cassidy had Pac. Except Phoenix did more shit because it's Ray Phoenix. They kept bringing up the commentary. It can be so hit or miss. Because Tony Schiavone says a tiny bit of nothing. Excalibur says nothing. And then just JR just reminds you that you're watching a wrestling show. I guess. Sometimes they can be informative at times when they're really impactful into the match. I guess that has something with no reaction by the fans. Like, they're not there. I can understand that. They have to play up the crowd reaction and how much of a hype factor in the match is going. Obviously, that's what the commentators there. But they're also there to inform you. Or else you're not getting that much of, like, you're just seeing dudes just slap each other. So, yeah, it's not that much of a big deal. Ray Phoenix would come up winning. I obviously was not that hyped into the matter, other than Pat coming back. He's still in England. Bringing up that Orange Cassidy is a little punk. Like, he's supposed to shoot up to the moon. He was feuding up with Hangman Page to go into Revolution, feuding with Orange Cassidy and the rest of the Best Friends. And plus, we were promised a street fight. Also, were promised blood and guts. And now it's moved up to, I guess, the next night on Dynamite after Double or Nothing. So I guess AEW, high octane wrestling, sports based shit, and of course, half truths. Just put that on the list. Yes, just put that on the list. It's just wow. We didn't get any Pentagon. Don't know where he is. Packed up over the thing, and we just ended up with Phoenix winning. So it was but it was a fun match to watch earlier parts of it. Next up, Britt Baker, Nyla Rose against Chris Statlander and Hikaru Shida in a tag team match to, I guess, build up some momentum for any woman who got so pinned come Double or Nothing. Britt Baker was just there as a heel partner because he could have kind of broke her nose in a one-on-one match a few weeks ago. She even had a promo, even though she's a dentist. She barely even had the gloves in. Both of them were overselling. In some aspects, it seems like Britt Baker suffered another injury, getting an ankle injury latter half of the match. Samoan drop. There was a forearm of Chris Statlander. Then I think she's trying to sell that her injuries are kind of crucial. Then she kept throwing these little sandbag punches in the middle of the corner while she's stuck with Nyla Rose. The match was as fair as it gets. Oh, God. A running shining wizard to the back of the head to Nyla Rose by Hikaru Shida. The match did end off a spinning power bomb by Nyla Rose, and it ended up with Nyla Rose Britt Baker taking the victory, with Britt Baker suffering a bit of an ankle injury in the latter half of the match, and Hikaru, Shida getting a table spot in with a superplex. I don't know what's the dynamic of just doing these big lifting moves. Like, I understand, like, it's cool, but it's just weird. We see Raiho doing Michinoku drivers and doing all of these big power moves, and she's like the weight of this Monday Night Raw Cup. And you're telling me that she's just doing this stuff on the fly in the middle of like a near 300-pound woman, she dude, whatever. It's just completely offset from what I've been watching. Like, we're supposed to oversell these women as powerful, and then they come around like selling an exploder suplex by a woman the size of, like the muscle mass of a bone marrow. It's it's kind of ridiculous, and people still sell off of the Raiho and Nyla Rose match as the match of the year in the aspect of just big shit for no reason and barely little storytelling. No disrespect on those women in general. It's just how I feel about the matches that they overhype in some aspects. At least tag team match with Hangman Page, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks at least had somewhat of a story going into the relationship of the Elite since winning the tag team gold. So you have that. Next up, we have Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara and the main event of Dynamite. Sammy Guevara, I don't think he has a main event of the Dynamite unless it involves him tagging with Jericho. We, of course, had another promo, and Dynamite even opened up with a limousine scene. Like, we can't have a primetime televised episode of pro wrestling without, of course, a limousine cruising in the middle of the show. WWE had it. WCW had it. I think a very few times Impact had that. They're either just in a backstage segment. But limousine with the inner circle is surprise Holmes. Avenge Vanguard won. Matt Hardy shall come the football match come Saturday. Sammy Guevara got fed to the Hound or just Matt Hardy. The match was just inviting. Side effect. Tossed him through the barricade, the guardrail, and Jim Ross questioned himself, why do we still have the guardrail? There's no crowd. And I guess it's for some sort of sizability. I don't know why. You watch Being the Elite, they're doing it they have a wrestling ring set up on the damn tennis court because it has the most spacing. Yeah, Matt Hardy won. There was a cool moment at least in this match. Twist of Fate countered with a handstand, so it's the equivalent of what Ricochet does to counteract the cutter. But it was cooler because it was a bit more transitional, and plus it's an actual finisher, so it looks a bit more finessed by Sammy Guevara. By the way, they need to change. He needs to change his tag team name with Jericho. Really, that needs to change like immediately. I don't want to. Like, I make a universe mode involving Dynamite, so if I have to put that on a tag team involving Jericho and Sammy, just know everything is gonna die, and I'm gonna break the game. I can't break the game because it's downloaded. But either way, fun match, decent selling of Sammy Guevara. Matt Hardy picks up the dub, but that doesn't mean, of course, Inner Circle is gonna come because this is a go home show. We need something to hype up. With, of course, this taking weirdly showing a video of Kenny Omega with only his shirt off and no bleeding, even though it's TV-14. And obviously with eye gouging, using some kind of drawing door to beat up on Nick Jackson or Matt Jackson. You're telling me you did nothing with Sammy Guevara in the open space of a football field? And no, just displayed the Young Bucks with their masks, because no corona, I guess. I think they're super cautious on that. It's shown a couple times before. And, of course, Hangman Page comes running off the deep end like nobody can hear, just a running man on an empty state football field, and he doesn't even hit buckshot lariats, drop kicks, hitting Omega. Matt Hardy just awkwardly just teleports because of course it's broken Matt Hardy. So yeah, decent one shot segment to close off Dynamite with the Elite finally on top over all the dismay of when losing that street fight tag team match the previous week on Dynamite. Most of the Elite, you know, losing most of their one half of their tag team champions, and of course the Young Bucks. So we at least have that. It's cool to see the Young Bucks and of course Hangman Page back. Still missing most of the tag division. I still find it kind of weird for the way they display the rules of a ladder match. I guess to make it unique, it's like equivalents of TNA level with the reverse battle royal, but at least it's supposed to be different, even though it makes no sense. Why not just have everybody in the ladder match to begin with? They're just getting a title shot. They're not. This isn't. You have no other like big pay per view. You guys have either Full Gear next November, probably Fighter Fest or whatever the hell you're gonna call it, or you know, Slut Walk or Strut Walk, whatever. And that's practically it. Hell, you guys might just make Slamboree, Bash at the Beach, Great American Bash, Halloween Havoc, Starcade, Super Brawl, wherever the hell you guys try to rip off WCW next. And of course, I don't know. And that was it. That's Dynamite, folks. Every match was more enjoyable than last week. Thought there was a less dismay of tag team matches, other than the women's tag team match. Pretty good promo off Arn Anderson. MJF with the corny factor that stunt is short and ugly. It's kind of a weak tint to how much we know an old school promo, and I praise MJF for his abilities and his mic skills. Just I feel like this was a weaker factor because this was a basic squash match. And the funniest part was just Wardlow just grabbing their hair and just looking away. Like, I'm not even getting paid enough from this guy. And there was not that much of a factor in future storylines intervening in all this, but you know, we have big match. Of course, Mike Tyson's gonna come out next on Saturday, so there's a lot of hype factor. We of course have a new championship, a big feud involving two former WWE guys that were literally released. One was released like a year ago, another one was just released like months ago, and of course, um, a ladder match. At least they're not trying to be gimmicky in their pay-per-views. Like they're trying to do full-on supercards to be one-off the feuds. So I'm not going to try to bash on AEW that much, even though I feel like they do have some minor flaws that are going to play a factor, continuity sake and logic sake. So enough on that. That's Dynamite. I'm gonna give Dynamite a 6 out of 10. Decent episode. Good wrestling. Just on the oh my god, just Sean Spears. Just drop that, please. And just the relevancy of the rest of the women's division. I felt like that was a major factor in all this. And like majority of the missing roster, but that's not their fault. It's basically on the coronavirus taking a toll in all of the damn paranoia all over the world. I mean, I would stay home too, even though I'm a wrestler, even though I have to make that even though I gotta make that paper. So, but that's how some people feel. That's it coming from me. From the DST show, like, comment, subscribe. Of course, there's there'll be videos probably or lazily not put on my face because I'm lazy, and that's just a fair warning on you. Thanks for watching, everybody. That's it for me.